excited. They're like kids right now. It's like Christmas Eve. You're excited. That childlike energy comes out in you. And we found a difference today. Kind of the first training session of the first game week. So there's a little different feel to today as well. You can the energy's palpable.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network. It is your host, Phil Bakke, and we've got another full house for you tonight. Tonight I'm joined by Christian Canales. Christian, welcome back. What's up?
Glad to be back and doing a real episode about a real game.
I know. It feels kind of surreal, honestly. I guess our last preview episode before the Orange County game would have been, 4 months ago now? So
yeah, just about. I think March 9th was the game, so it's been exactly 4 months to the day.
Gosh, that's crazy. 4 months ago, we were talking about the start of the season, and now we're talking about the start again. With RGV coming up this weekend. But we've got with us tonight also Mikka Borelli. Mikka, welcome.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that we're getting into form, I think. We had a long preseason as well, I guess you could say. Yeah. But it's good to be talking about actual Locomotive soccer tonight, so I'm excited.
Yeah, agreed on all accounts. Hopefully we can get back into mid-season form pretty quickly. But we'll try to shake the rust off here, as I'm sure our boys will be trying to do the same thing on Saturday. But we also have Austin Young. Austin, what's going on, man?
How's it going, guys? Like you said, good to be back. Talk about an actual match coming up. So exciting episode.
Yeah, it is. It's an exciting time, I think, for everybody coming back. But as we spoke about last week, I mean, let's just dive right into it. The big conversation we had last week was surrounding kind of Locomotive's approach to trying to have fans at these matches and trying to have spectators. We expressed, I think, as a group, a little bit of uneasiness about this. Well, Locomotive has since reversed its decision, citing kind of what's going on in Texas at large and what's going on in El Paso with COVID-19. So they reversed their decision. These first two matches against RGV and New Mexico United are going to be without fans in the stands. So I just want to get your guys' initial reactions. And Austin, I mean, we can start with you. Just your initial reaction to Locomotive's decision. And I mean, I think I know where a lot of the panel here stands, but how do you feel about Locomotive reversing course here?
I think it was a good idea for the club to do it, not just, of course they're going to be losing out revenue, but just for the safety of the fans and the struggle that it would have put the staff in as well, just having to quote unquote enforce social distancing, and it would have just put a lot more people at risk than needed. And I know fans aren't too happy about it, but when you think about it on the bigger picture scale, I think it was the right plan, and see if the club keeps taking the right approach for it.
Yeah, I mean, Mikka, Christian, do you guys kind of fall in line with what Austin was saying?
Yeah, I think the other thing to think about too, besides just the people involved, is that this is I assume that there would be, several hundreds of people there. And you also have to think about the effect that has on the rest of the city, not just the people that are at the game. So I think that the club kind of has a little bit of a responsibility to the community as well, to make sure that they're not the reason that things get, exponentially worse. So yeah, I'm 100% on board with it.
Yeah, everyone's pretty much covered kind of my thoughts on it too. I hate to be cynical, but I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that, I don't think we'd ever find out, but that money has something to do with it. Because I know that they kind of had a scheme going where they were trying to gauge interest in people, using their tickets and getting new tickets for this match. And They were asking people to respond about that. So I wonder if there just was kind of like a muted response, I guess you could say, to where they couldn't feasibly hold a match with fans, or if it wasn't even worth it. Because I mean, there's so much logistical planning that goes into every match. I mean, you have to have the concessions and the police. They have to be notified of all these things. The city, all the employees that you would need for something of that scale. So even with just a third of people there, so. I wouldn't be surprised if it really was both things being taken into consideration and rolling back that decision. I do feel for the fans that were really wanting to go. I know it's disappointing. But I mean, at least we're still going to have soccer in some way. And we'll talk about that tonight.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering too is if any of the fans or Eighth Notch are still going to try to go and watch it from the gates. Because as we all know, I mean, they're even from back by the Scottish Rider or on Santa Fe, that you still have some good viewing angles of the pitch. So I wonder if fans go, if they're going to have police try to get them out of there, or what the plans are for there,
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it would be a big crowd, and I definitely encourage people to not do that. But because I'm sure Locomotive already have some they obviously had concerns on their mind going into this. But I mean, it's an interesting thought too, and certainly I don't know what the response of the city would be to any sort of congregation down there. I'm sure they wouldn't be too happy about it if there was some kind of gathering down there.
I hope I didn't give anybody any ideas.
I think people are way ahead of you, Austin. I saw someone in our mentions yo, who's got access to the Scottish Rite roof?
Yeah. But yeah, I think it kind of highlights what we spoke about last week with in regards to kind of how even Germany in the Bundesliga is not having fans, even with their kind of tight controls of coronavirus. So I think it was a smart move. I think it's certainly a fluid situation and something that, as things progress, it's something that could easily change, in the coming weeks, in terms of, future matches and whether fans will be allowed and in what capacity. Things have obviously been changing a lot surrounding everything with COVID-19. So I think we'll see fans at some point. I don't know if it'll happen in this return to play though, because it is such an abbreviated period of time. So we may end up, I mean, do you guys think that we will see fans before the end of the return to play this abbreviated season, or do you think it'll likely stretch into next year?
I think there's the opportunity. I think even kind of like what Mikka was saying, the planning and all that might be why they couldn't do it for this game. But I think they kind of explicitly said that, we are not having fans for the first two games, and they may have left that open, because they're hoping that that'll give them enough time to get all that planning done so that by, home game 3, they are able to have fans. So I think it's a good possibility.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of this year goes, and we'll certainly see, I guess, kind of the response of the league and their handling of things in regards to this. But we did get some surprising news in a different sense. I think we're used to being surprised on a almost daily basis now by everything in the news, but Locomotive dropped a little bit of surprising news the other day, announcing the signing of Eder Borelli from FC Juarez, and the 29-year-old left back joins. We spoke about Alexi Bassetti's departure. We spoke about potential attacking replacements, but we get a left back in. What do you guys think? And maybe Christian, we'll start with you. You're sporting Bravos gear as we speak, and I think as the resident Bravos expert, you can kick us off here. Eder Borelli, and what do you think of this signing, and how he'll fit in with El Paso Locomotive?
I think as far as quality is concerned, that it's a great idea. It's a little strange given the fact that we just lost an attacker. That we signed this fullback, but he definitely is an attacking fullback. More so than defending. He can move. He likes to pass, and he's still relatively young. I think he's kind of right in his golden years right now. He's 29. So I think that as far as quality goes, it's a good fit. Tactically, we'll have to see what Mark plans to do with him. But like I had mentioned earlier in the week, it might kind of be a move to put him in the starting 11 right away and have Fox as depth. Maybe Mark wasn't too happy with what he saw in his first game in OC with Fox out there, considering he played as a center back for us all of last year, and maybe he had adjusted better to that role. So that's what I think. I think it'll be exciting. It's, as a fan, I think it's exciting. I think as a business between, Mountain Star owning, having a stake in both teams, that it's good to continue building that relationship, and hopefully it's a trend that we see going forward.
Yeah, I think that pipeline is something we spoke about last year with Josue Aron Gomez, obviously, and with Borelli. Maybe it's an expansion of that potential pipeline. But Mikka, I mean, we spoke a lot about the defense and kind of how things were looking for Locomotive in the preseason building up. We spoke about how we kind of saw a lot of depth in a lot of defensive positions. Now, in some ways, we have potentially 3 left backs, or at least 2, with Fox maybe being more cover for center back instead. Or potentially, who knows, he could be a starting center back based off of what we saw last season if he hits that form. But where do you see Borelli fitting in? Do you see him as a just immediate kind of addition into that first team, supplanting Fox's role out left? Or do you see him kind of supplementing what we've got going on?
I'm gonna say that he's probably gonna start right away and probably be in the squad pretty quickly, just because of what we've seen Mark do with new signings before. I mean, he's like the opposite. Yeah, exactly. He's like the opposite of Jurgen Klopp in terms of like, putting new pieces in the side. And maybe that's just a result of the kind of league that we're playing in, obviously. But from what I could tell from some highlights and things that I've seen and things I've read, it seems like he's always been a left back primarily. But I mean, he seems like he's technically sound enough to maybe play further forward, maybe play as a wide midfielder or something like that. And with Omar Salgado having to serve a suspension to start off this restart, maybe that's the idea too. But I wouldn't be surprised either if he just takes that left back spot, because we did lose James Kiffey, who created a lot for us from that position last season. So that was an obvious hole, I think, in the team. And Moses McKinney has kind of been on the fringes of the squad, if you will. So I think this is a good move. I think it gives us a lot of options. And of course, more competition is always a good thing. It is kind of funny that, our attacking depth is so thin and they announce a left back. But I mean, the transfer's given and they take it away. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
It's a really interesting move, I think, for that reason. There's a couple of things I think could potentially happen, but we know that Mark really enjoys like a couple of systems, and I don't know that he's planning any major tactical shakeup as a result of this. I think it, if anything, Austin, I mean, maybe you can see if you agree with me. By all accounts, Eder was very he loved like Juarez and El Paso. He loved like this whole area when he got here. he spent more time at FC Juarez than he spent at any club in his whole tenure, I believe, with the exception of maybe Tigres because he came up through their youth program. But he loved this area. It seems like it could have been kind of a convenient move where it benefits the player because he gets to stay in this area a little bit older, so probably some family concerns there too. He gets to stay in the area, and the club get to add a skilled player with Liga MX's experience.
Yeah, I think if anything, he was probably looking, like you said, wanting to stay in the area. And not only that, I mean, maybe it's coming from a higher league and being able to perform there. For him coming here, maybe getting more playing time, more than likely he's probably still going to live in Juarez. I wouldn't be surprised. So not much changes, just going to a different league, different team. And I mean, yes, it is surprising that Mark brought in another defender, but at the same time, can you really say you're surprised that Mark brought in another defender? Regarding, the lack of attack that we have, but just seeing, off the highlights we have of him, and he looks like he'd be a great asset on the side, and being able to cross that ball in and seeing what he can do. So I'm definitely excited to see him play. I don't know if Mark's ready to put him in this week. Who knows how long he's been with the club, but it's exciting.
I always Mark has obviously expressed to this podcast before his kind of enjoyment of the way that Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp employ their fullbacks. So I think with a signing like this, it's certainly a statement in terms of his desire to really have that attacking intent and that ability to get up and down the wing from his fullbacks. So one stat of note, 3 goals and 4 assists in his appearances for Bravos. But the thing that stood out to me, just the 1 red card. So quite the change from James Kiffey. If that stat holds, do you think we get a little bit more of a measured approach at that left back spot? Because I believe Kiffey saw red 3 times last season.
And he had terrible timing with him too. I think we should add against Phoenix, against Monarchs in the finals.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully there's a little more discipline.
Yeah. So Borelli joining, I think it is. I think it will be interesting. I really don't think that Mark is planning a tactical shakeup, as I said. But is there any chance, Mikka, that he's contemplating moving to a back 5 or playing with a back 3 and wing backs?
I think I would be surprised if we do that, because I think Mark really prioritizes controlled midfield,
right?
More so than kind of dominating the flanks. And if we move to a back 5, then we lose a pivot, most likely. So yeah, I'd be kind of surprised, but then again, I wouldn't be at all, because Mark surprises us all the time. So I don't know. With the depth, we could absolutely play a system like that. But I don't know. I think the thought is for him to more be a traditional left back.
Yeah. And if it happens, I don't think it happens this weekend, considering they've only been, doing full practices for 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it'd probably be a little rush to shake up the whole philosophy of the team that quickly, but maybe by the end of the season, who knows?
So we head into this match with this new addition against Rio Grande Valley, and this a little bit of a bogey team for us last year. Obviously, the draw where they scored 2 late goals to haul it back and deny Locomotive that first win, that first ever win in that game at the Swap. I remember the sharp pains of that game, and then the kind of a poor flat performance down in Edinburgh. So, guys, just talk through. I'll start with you, Austin. Just going into this game against RGV, has a little bit of a strange feel to it because they weren't necessarily a great team last season, but they gave us a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it was always a tough match, and said I won't forget that first one at the swap. And I can't remember the guy's name that hit the free kick, right? And he came and tried to shush us up, and just that game, like
Jesus Enriquez.
Yes,
he now
Jesus
plays for
Enriquez.
He now plays for SAFC, just for everybody.
Oof.
Yeah.
But ever since that moment, it's just the chance that we had to get our first win as a club, and we were up 2-0, and since then, those chants were always banned from the stadium.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I don't know who started off. That was just
absolutely shocking.
So ever since then, the RGB's always had that one place in my heart that just always want to take them down.
The interesting thing about this matchup is, despite the fact that they are an MLS2 side, obviously, they're the 2 side for Houston. They do have an awesome podcast that is a fellow BGN podcast, Down in the Valley podcast. Just a great group. Always down to talk Copa Tejas and everything, and really active on social media as well. They did an interview with their manager yesterday. So I just wanted to read through a couple of the quotes, a couple of the highlights, and get your guys' thoughts on basically how they're sizing us up ahead of this matchup. And when their manager was asked, he said, there is one characteristic that El Paso has because of their coach, and that is that they're a very possession-oriented team. They want to be very patient with the ball and move the ball around. They're also a physically big team, and, well, we're not. I think offensively we do have some dynamic guys, but as you saw last game, there were moments in which defensively we just looked very childish. Since we've been able to go in full tilt, we've addressed that on a daily basis and addressed how to defend as a unit. And then on how to get past possession-based teams, he said it's being organized and defending in numbers. If we're only defending 1 or 2, when they have 3 guys around, they'll be able to move the ball around since they're an extremely technical team. So, guys, I mean, with these kind of with these comments coming out, I mean, last year I would argue that we were not a physically big team. Mark kind of set out in the offseason to change that. Do you think that changes some of the thinking around how teams are going to set up against us? I mean, Mikka, we can start with you on this one. Just, do you think that they obviously go into these games thinking that we're going to control the ball, and rightfully so, because Mark always sets out to dominate possession. But do you think they also now have to be concerned about giving up set pieces and all of these sort of things where size could potentially be a big factor?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we added a big striker in Mario Slomi, so set pieces, as all of us we all just like laughed at them last season and just said, go ahead and take it. Let's move on. I hope that we've worked on that more in the off season, because that's a really just like a muted part of our game. But I think we have more options there now, and maybe, Eder Borelli, that's kind of the thought with him too, is because he looks like he's got a cross on him. So, I guess we'll see in terms of the dead ball situations. But I mean, possession's not everything, as we saw with the 2 fixtures that we had against RGV last season. We dominated possession in both of those games, and did not come away with a win either time. And so there's been a lot of turnover in their squad. And, with these MLS2 sides, I just always feel like there's a lot of, kids in those sides. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but just, kids that are trying to make it in MLS. And, they might want to lay one on one of our players because they're trying to get noticed. I mean, I feel like a lot of the shit house performances we saw last season were with MLS2 sides. So yeah. I think that's something we need to think about too, is that they might try to just outpace us, and try to not let us dictate tempo and break up the game in that way. So it's an interesting matchup. I just want to win against them for once. That would be nice. I'm glad we're at home though, because one thing I always think about with RGV is their pitch just seems so big, and I don't know if those are like camera angles or what, but like it just seems like it's a nice pitch and a nice stadium, but like it just looks huge and it just looks like a taxing place to play. So I'm glad that we're coming back at home, and hopefully hopefully we'll be able to get something out of this even with the fans not there.
That is a huge factor too, and I know. I guess I'll sprinkle this fake question in here from at Lutep Minor. Lou, former president of Eighth Notch, just throwing shade at RGV and asking, will they have the advantage because they're used to playing in front of nobody? That is harsh, but fair. Unfortunately, it's just kind of the way it is with MLS two sides. But one of the things that I think is interesting, Mikka, that you brought up is the fact that, possession didn't really count for much in either of those games. I remember specifically the away match just being one of the most frustrating games where it felt like we weren't really creating anything at all. Christian, going into this matchup with their own manager describing their defense as childish or probably, naive, I guess, defensively naive. How important is it for Locomotive to really try to take advantage of a team that maybe doesn't defend that well as a unit?
Yeah, well, it's hard to take one game from 4 months ago into consideration, but in their only game that they were able to play, they lost 5-1 to Galaxy 2. So they definitely can be scored on. Galaxy 2 also, not necessarily being what we think of as maybe, one of the more potent attacks in the league. So I think that there is an opportunity for us to tax someone early. And I do think it's important, especially just given the circumstances, just to get back into the rhythm of things as quickly as possible. The quicker that we can start being successful and feeling comfortable and confident, I think that'll really do a lot for us.
Austin, headed into this one, it's a completely new look for RGV. Being an MLS 2 side, a lot of their players from last year are up with Houston in the bubble right now down there in Orlando. And then quite a few players moved on, either just were released or moved on to other teams. And none of the goal scorers from last season against us are still with the team. Remilio Hernandez is a free agent. Jesus Enriquez, as we said, at San Antonio FC, and Eric Bird, who scored the only goal in RGV when we played, is at Tulsa now. So, completely new look. It's almost like trying to size up like an expansion side right now.
Yeah, and that was one thing that we talked about last time was for all these MLS 2 squads, how many of them were going to suffer on their roster because of the whole hub going on in the MLS and all that. So it's good and bad that it's a whole new roster that we're basically going to be seeing good because we don't know what kind of chemistry these guys might have, and bad because, again, we're going in not knowing much about these guys, or we don't know what kind of film we might have on them. So it's going to be a challenge, but I think it should be an easy win, if anything.
Dang. Well, I hope so. I'm really hoping so. It is I think we should go into this game confidently but the tough thing about this whole break is everybody's kind of starting from scratch where, normally them coming off a 5-1 loss to LA, I'd be going into this after our performance against OC. I'd be like, we're in a good spot right here. I think this is a good team to kind of break out of the slump and kind of get, or not break out of the slump, but, score a couple of goals, be feeling really good. And now, I don't even know what to think because we've got roster changes, a couple in the off season. We've got now they might still be feeling the effects if they lost 5-1 to LA. They might still be feeling that a little bit, but not as much as I'd like them to be, unfortunately. And today they actually announced the signing of 3 new players just today. I don't know if you guys see the new additions from RGV?
No, I hadn't seen them yet.
Yeah. So Jonathan Jimenez, Carter Manley, and James Murphy. 2 of them have been in USL before. Jonathan Jimenez is coming from college, so just a midfielder who was playing at University of the Pacific. So I don't know where that is, but
Sacramento, I think.
Oh, okay. But Carter Manley is coming from Minnesota United, and James Murphy was in Scotland for a year playing in the 2nd division. They had both spent time at Las Vegas Lights, the current dumpster fire of the Western Conference, but which we haven't even really been able to speak about. But with these additions, I mean, do you guys think? Obviously, they're announcing it today. They may have trained this week. Do you think these guys are going to have enough time to make an impact in the match against us this weekend?
I was actually going to ask, are they eligible to play so soon after joining?
Well, I don't know. I mean, San Antonio would probably turn them down.
That's right.
But I'm not sure.
That. Yeah. I mean, this just adds to the mystery, I guess. I just don't know how you can scout this kind of opposition when there's been so much turnover. So it's hard to know what to think. But again, when I feel like when you have these MLS2 sides, these players are looking to impress. So, I mean, there's no reason why any of them won't want to put on, their best performance, whether they just joined the squad or they've been training for months. So, yeah, I didn't see that they had signed so many new players, but I don't know. Maybe we should be flattered. Maybe they're just trying to get their numbers up because they're coming to the Western Conference finalists. So
they also have a few notable players. And Mikka, I have to throw this over to you. One of their players, central midfielder Timo Melish, a Gladbach youth product. Borussia Mönchengladbach being your Bundesliga team, so. He's obviously been out of the academy for a little bit, but one of the Die Fohlen making his way over to the Rio Grande Valley.
Yes, Die Fohlen Elf. Yeah, Timo is a Gladbach boy. He's from the city. Came through the academy. I think he had played. He never had a chance in the first team or anything like that, but I think after that he played in like a regional team that represents Mönchengladbach too. So. It's pretty cool little connection there. I've never seen him play, but yeah. it's cool that they're getting more. It's just cool to see how diverse the league is, really, and that we're able to attract talent like this, even if they are coming from college and that kind of thing. So,
I don't know if this name stuck out to you guys at all, but Victor Garza. I know he has been in Houston for a little while now. But I think anyone who was around maybe like FIFA or Football Manager over the last like decade would potentially know about him from like U.S. youth teams. Because I think he was in the U-20 setup for a little bit, maybe around the same time as Omar. Like similar age group, I feel like, because I think he's about 28 now. So Victor Garza kind of standing out as like the old head around RGV. And I mean, what do you think about those type of guys like influence in a team like that, where they clearly are there, like they would rather be with the MLS side? Do you think they provide like a lot of value in terms of their like leadership or game sense or anything like that to these? A lot of these guys are, in their 20 or, in their early 20s, if that. Lot of really young guys. So do you think is it like that gives them any sort of like better cohesion or any sort of better ability to combat us from a game plan perspective?
Well, I think that the value of having Victor Garza is, if I'm not mistaken, he's from the Valley. So it's kind of cool that he's kind of playing for his hometown club, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's thought of or looked at as one of the leaders in the locker room, having had, experiences in, I think, Tigres, and has he played anywhere else in Mexico? I think that was the one that he was the most associated with.
He was there for a while.
Yeah. So I remember back in the day on FIFA, he was like a complete pace merchant, but not, I don't know. I don't remember anything else about him. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting signing.
For the other two names that stood out to me, Luca Perpa is the one who scored that lone goal in the opener. Fresh out of college, he was drafted by Houston Dynamo out of Marquette. So I'd say he's probably one to watch, given the fact that he's the one who's found the back of the net so far. But another attacking player that stood out, Tyberson, Brazilian attacker who came up through Atletico Paranaense and Internacional. So quite the pedigree in terms of Brazilian clubs, two big time Serie A clubs in Brazil. So
certain Allison played at Internacional. No,
yeah. Who else? There's a bunch who have come through Inter, and because I guess it's Inter Gremio is the big
huge derby. Derby. Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, for you guys, as we Austin and Christian, I mean, we spoke about kind of the attitude of this RGV team. Do you think they come into this one kind of from a position of this is a fresh start for them, given they had that drubbing at the beginning of the season? Do you think they come into this one thinking, we kind of have nothing to lose because it's almost a fresh start?
I mean, yes, but you would have to think that any MLS2 squad goes into every match like that. Like I said, they're coming in, they're wanting to impress, the MLS side. So that's always the risk you have playing any MLS2 squad. And especially, like you said, coming in, you have to wonder as well, with so many new signings, if the chemistry still isn't there, having so many months off and they've barely been able to get back to training. So it's kind of hard to tell really more than anything, but you always have to worry about that playing MLS2 squad, that they're just going to come in, balls out, full speed, full throttle.
Balls out.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why the fans aren't going to be there.
Oh man, Christian, you got any thoughts on from kind of RGV's perspective, looking at their side or looking at how these MLS2 teams kind of set up? Any concerns headed into this one?
I don't know. It's a whole new season, really. It's essentially game one. So I think that there's not really any expectations right now. I think each and every team, you're going out there and just finding out who you are. And hopefully, you get a positive result. So I really don't think that any team that plays this weekend is necessarily going to be disappointed with anything. I'm sure they're going to, give, whatever effort that they can out there. And it'll just be interesting to see the circumstances of these games are something that no one's ever dealt with. And, the format that they're going to be playing in. So there's just a lot of variables. And I just think as a manager, as a player, you just have so many thoughts going through your head about how this is going to go down, that I think that the hard part is just going to be staying focused, especially in this first game. So there'll be nerves, there'll be rust.
And I think it's a good point to segue over to kind of Locomotive's perspective from this one. And with that, we're going to answer a couple of fan and supporter questions here. First one that I want to talk about, and this kind of launches our discussion on Locomotive's approach to this match is from the Shark at Ramos5173, and he just asked, expectations going into the first match, and who do you feel will need to step up in an attacking role with the departure of Bassetti? I had put this in the outline, so good good on you, Shark, for kind of lining up with what we were already going to talk about. But the offensive player to watch in this one, I mean, we spoke a lot about kind of the offensive player to watch over the course of the season. But who do you think, and we can just start with Austin and go down the line, like, who do you think is that offensive linchpin that's really going to make the difference in this one?
Just kind of going based off what we saw against Orange County that first game of the season, I'm really going to keep my eye out for Dylan Mars. Just how he was able to play that game and kind of brought that energy, and he had a couple of good strikes, so hopefully he can bring that again and see him finally produce.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout, just because he is going to play such a vital role, I think, in that number 10 position, and he's really going to be asked to do a lot in terms of linking up the midfield with attack. So I definitely feel you on that, because I think he is probably going to get more touches in an attacking sense than probably anyone else if he's starting in that central attacking midfield position. We'll talk a little bit later about potentially systems that Mark could trot out, or places we think different players could play. But yeah, Mahrez is definitely a good shout, I think. And so Mikka, I mean, who are you looking for in this one to come up big in the offensive sense?
Yeah, I can't disagree with the suggestion of Mahrez really spearheading the attack from the hole, from central, attacking midfield. I would think it looked like he had a good preseason and is fit. But I mean, I think we have to look to Lomis just because he's got the goal scoring pedigree in this league, and Jerome Kiesfeder's boots are big ones to fill, but I think that he can do it. Said Robinson too. I hate that I always forget about him, but I think he's got something to offer us as well. But I really hope that we can stay healthy, because that's a really thin attacking core that we have. And we might see some of our fullbacks converted to midfielders or wide players if one or two people pick up an injury. So yeah, those are the players I think that we'll be counting on to create something, especially in Omar Salgado's absence for the suspension that he still needs to serve.
Yeah, and he is just to confirm, he is out for this one. Omar, he'll be back eligible for the next match. However, as you were saying, Mikka, about Mario Lomis, I think he's with him being so traditionally a 9, and so clearly that guy who's going to be up top, so much of our attack is going to end up at his feet there, whether it's through the center or from the flanks. And maybe Borelli can contribute to this, going forward. But yeah, so much of it is going to go through him, and he's going to be asked to finish so many attacking moves. I think we saw him come close, even with, not too many opportunities, but one very big chance that I think he's probably a little disappointed he didn't put away. And Aaron Cervantes probably had a lot to say about that on the day in Orange County. But yeah, I think Lomas naturally is going to get a lot of attention just because he's going to be the focal point of the attack. And pretty much everything is going to end up going through him at some point, I think. So that's definitely another good shout. And Christian, I mean, any other thoughts on who to watch out for in this one?
Yeah, so with Bassetti being gone and Omar being out for this game, I really think that only leaves there's really only one other option up there, and that is going to be Gomez. And I hope that it's true what you say, that Lomas is, going going to be the main focal point, especially for their defense, because hopefully it's going to open up a lot of opportunity for Gomez to get some good looks. And, the more he scores, the happier I'll be. So I think that I hope that he comes back. I assume, like I said, I assume he's going to start unless Mark changes something up. I don't know who else is going to fill in Bassetti's spot. But yeah, so I hope he can continue. He didn't get the start against Orange County. I think he only played about 10 minutes in that game. So hopefully he gets some more time and is able to pick up where he left off last season.
Yeah, I like the idea too of potentially. We saw, I think, quite a bit last season. We saw Mark employ the diamond, which I know Mikka maybe not as big a fan of the diamond. But I do.
It has its uses.
Yeah, I do like the idea. I do really like the idea of Gomez and Lomas being able to play off each other as an attacking two up top, and with Mahrez in behind, that could be a really potentially dangerous trio up top. And that could, if they do play as a two up top, then it could certainly open up the space for the fullbacks to really get forward and provide that width. Because really your midfielders are not going to be doing as much in terms of that wide attacking. So it would certainly support like what Mark has done in the past. We've seen him trot out the diamond quite frequently. And it's kind of one of those classic, like when you boot up Football Manager for the first time and the default tactic kind of puts a target man striker, a big guy, and a poacher like next to him. And that's kind of like the default setting. And it makes sense for Lomas to be that big guy in there who can win the headers, get knockdowns and all that stuff. And Gomez is kind of that. He has that kind of innate sense to get in and around the goal and create things. So definitely someone else to look out for. But as we spoke about in the build-up or in the kind of intro to all this, with RGV's manager explicitly talking about how El Paso is such a possession-based team, there were times in the past that we saw Locomotive forego the possession game just a little bit. Do you think this is an opportunity to kind of catch a team out and play maybe a little more direct, maybe a little bit quicker on the counter to really try to get in behind? And especially if he's already said, we want to defend it with numbers, we want to defend deep, winning that ball back and really getting up the field seems like a potentially good foil to that plan. So what do you guys think? Do you think Mark maybe sets out a little bit different game plan for this first game of the season?
I think he maybe has, a couple of aces up his sleeve. I don't think that he'll come out, playing like that for any sustained amount of time. But as we saw last year, Mishak can put a long ball over the top. And so, if we have that opportunity early on in the game or later on in the game, maybe when they're a little more worn down, then I definitely see that being played, at least 2 or 3 times just to really catch them off guard. And, 1 or 2 times might be all it needs. If it's a low scoring game, there's a possibility that this game ends up 1-0. So make all the difference.
Yeah, I think Christian's right. I don't see him playing that way for a full 90 minutes, but Mark definitely has in the past, picked and chose where he wants to really attack. And even though we are kind of thin in the attacking front, but we still have the skill and the pace, I think, to be able to do that when needed. So I wouldn't be surprised if, for a short 10, 15 minutes, Mark is really pressing the ball up to really attack and try to get behind him. But other than that, I don't see him doing it for a full sustained 90 minutes. So
I think it's interesting because the early parts of the game in Orange County, I'd say the opening 10, 15, we also pressed a lot higher than we did previously. It was like a marked difference. I think at the beginning we were all kind of like looking at each other like, oh damn, like this is different. The intensity was definitely higher. So do you think that's something too, especially with a younger team? Maybe we'll see Mark set the press out a little bit and try to really like press them into mistakes and maybe score a couple of cheap goals off of some turnovers like deep in their own territory.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're always looking to dominate midfield, and you're right. That first game back, the press was much more intense, and that kind of showed in preseason too. From what I was able to see, is that it seemed like the team was much more up tempo, because there were times last season where it was just pedestrian. Really, I like possessing the ball, but I mean, it has to result in creation, or really it's pointless.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll probably press in waves, and there's probably going to be specific triggers for the press, because I don't think it's sustainable over the entire game, especially against probably younger legs. I mean, we are a bit of an older team, so as far as average age, of course. So yeah, if we can come out with that intensity, then and force them into mistakes high up the pitch, then yeah, it'll take less passes to get to goal, and hopefully we can just capitalize on that early, and then try to game manage, which we know that we can do and that Mark can do. So I think that's a very, very solid game plan, really.
That does play off of Patrick's tweet, his question for us. At Areola Patrick, what will the Gaffers' game plan be? I personally think every manager and coaching staff in USL is flying blind because there was no time to properly watch tape and draw up tactics. I think we're all in for some sloppy play in the next several days. Rust never sleeps. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think it's going to be pretty evident, the 4-month layoff that these guys had since game number 1?
I think that as far as quality goes, that I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think as the game goes on, legs might be an issue. But I was listening to Mark on Steve Kaplitz's show today, and he said that he fully plans on using 5 subs and starting them early. I think rotation is going to be very important. It's unfortunate that as far as, the attacking players, the ones who really do a good amount of running, we don't have a lot of options up there. But I think that might be kind of good for Mark and for the players to kind of make them think a little bit more, get a little more creative with how they play. And with that creativity is the opportunity to catch a lot of teams off guard.
Yeah, I say maybe for like the first 10, 15 minutes, you might see like those first game, like nerves kind of go away. Just because, again, it's the first game in months. But, Christian brought it up. I'm excited to see what Mark's going to do with now having 5 subs. And is he going to utilize all 5? When is he going to utilize them? And if I'm understanding correctly, you can use all 5, but it's only at 3 times, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so just to clarify for anyone listening, I did fail to mention USL did announce that they're going to follow the guidelines that the rest of FIFA is using right now. You can make 5 total substitutions, but you can only do it at 3 separate instances. Halftime does not count as one of them. So technically you can do 4 if you make a sub at halftime. But that's obviously, pretty early on. Otherwise, you have to make all 5 in just 3 separate occasions. So that's when you see a bunch of changes being made, just know that is the new guideline from FIFA to basically combat restarting the season so long after it started in all these leagues across the world. So. But yeah, that's a really good point, Austin. And I mean, I'll let you continue your point now that I've explained the rule. But yeah, Mark will probably utilize those, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I didn't know about the halftime thing, so I think that's going to change it up for a lot of squads. And I think, it may be early in the match, but I think if not everyone, most of the teams are going to take advantage of being able to make that substitution at halftime and not have it count towards the 3.
One thing too, I will add is there's probably going to be more opportunities for a little bit of extra tactical instruction because we are currently going through a heat wave here in the Southwest. It is extremely hot. So I'm assuming they're going to have water breaks like they did, or hydration breaks like they did last season when it was getting really hot in the middle of the season. So, yeah, it'll be interesting from a management standpoint of managing the players in those circumstances.
I think we've seen just in the European leagues restarting. I think we've seen a lot of impact from subs. I don't know if you guys have noticed this in the games you've watched, but it seems like so often players coming off the bench have completely changed things, and especially with the ability to change literally, 49% of the team with 11 players on, you can change half across the course of the 90. So there's a lot of room for kind of tactical tinkering within a match compared to normal. Do you think there's a benefit? Like, do you think Mark benefits from that? Or do you think there's the potential to kind of like overthink and over kind of plan in the subs and maybe kind of get it wrong the other way?
Well, Mark's always kind of kept his subs in his pocket a lot of times anyway. Yeah. So
the notorious third sub that never leaves the bench. Yeah,
exactly. I wonder if it's going to turn into the notorious fifth. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see. I don't think or anticipate Mark overthinking too much. I think if he could talk to his players throughout the game, he probably would. But yeah, just for the sake of the players and kind of their fitness, I hope he does take advantage of that allowance from IFAB and from FIFA. So. But I am interested to see how it benefits teams with more depth, i.e. like Phoenix or someone like that has so many options that could potentially become kind of I don't know, maybe a little bit of an unfair advantage. But I mean, I totally understand why they're doing it.
Not our problem right now. Thank God.
Yeah, we avoided that one for the time being. Hopefully, we run into them at some point in this because it means we're doing well. But
true.
As we kind of close out the preview, I'm interested to get. I think we know a lot of, and I'll probably maybe put some like prospective lineup graphics on Twitter following this discussion. But I am interested in the few positions that I think we have some kind of flexibility or some uncertainty as to who will get the start. I'm interested to know who you guys think what our starting 11 looks like and where we'll see players play. I think goalkeeper, no question. Right back, center backs, probably set, I would say, with Rebellon and Mishak and Chiro. Do you think that Mishak's position under threat at all due to kind of some shaky moments in OC?
I think that was just him shaking the rust off. But, I mean, with the type of injury he had, people always say you never know how they're going to come back. So, I mean, he still had his moments where he did great, but you're right, he was shaky. But I think, if anything, it was just him shaking the rust off. And I want to be surprised if we see a little bit of that again, just because, again, it was so many months in between since OC.
Yeah, Phil, you spoke about kind of how we've seen in the leagues in Europe, how subs have had such an impact. Well, I think the layoff from coronavirus has had an impact, a positive one, on a lot of injured players too. I mean, obviously Mishak suffered that horror injury last season. So I'm hoping that he was able to get a little bit more rehab and more training done in this pause from play. And maybe he's in contention to start again. I certainly think that if we're going to want to play direct, that he's crucial to that type of a game. So yeah, I don't rule him out of starting or anything like that, but I do hope he's been able to get healthier.
Yeah, he. I mean, it basically he may have caught up, I guess, in terms of just his game fitness is now going to be on kind of a level playing field with everybody else. I would assume by now. So that's certainly an interesting one to watch, given the signing of Eder Borelli. So I'm going to get your guys' definitive opinion. Eder, does he start in that left back spot in this match, or do we see Foxy out there once again?
I say he's out there.
Eder?
Yeah, I think he starts.
Eder starts?
Yeah.
2 for Eder starts? 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think there's big potential, especially with the amount of subs, because I think Mark has a chance here to start Borelli, have him go just full throttle for 45 minutes, and bring Fox on, depending on the score. He could easily switch to kind of a more conservative back four, depending on, if we have a lead or something like that, then he may make a switch just for fitness purposes. Not sure what Borelli, obviously, we haven't been able to go to training or see how anyone's doing. So I'm not sure the level of training that he had been doing prior to his move. So I guess we'll see where his fitness is at. But I think with the extra subs, it kind of gives Mark a little bit more of a luxury of starting him and then potentially shifting things as the game goes on, to either give him a rest or switch to a kind of a more conventional system, or a more conventional defensive player in Fox. But
we have so many fullbacks.
Yeah.
We have Becky, we have Moses, we have Borelli, we have Fox.
We have, I don't know, we're like the opposite of Germany's 2014 World Cup team that only brought center backs and played a back four. We play a back four with just fullbacks. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be an interesting one. And then I think the next question mark is just that midfield composition. I think we always speak of the midfield as a 3, because that's kind of how shape-wise it kind of shakes out, whether it's technically a 4-4-2 diamond or a 4-3-3. I think in a lot of ways the midfield is a 3. I mean, Richie is going to be there. fitness, withstanding. We know Richie's going to be in that number 6 spot. Do you think Mark goes with Distel and Nick Ross again, or what do you think the move is in that midfield 3?
I think so, just for familiarity. Not change it up too much going into this match.
I think Distel is more of a certainty. I think the other free 8 role, or the 10 role, if you will, however we end up playing, is where he might have some problems with selection. But Distel looked awesome in his first game in preseason, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing more of him. I think that he's so dynamic and experienced, and I think that really he selects himself, but we'll see.
It's so like deja vu again. This is the same conversation we were having 4 months ago.
I know.
We had no idea what was going to happen in the midfield. So, and we can't even really, like I said, I don't think we can put too much stock in that Orange County game because, in the training they've been doing since then, who knows? Distel might have impressed less in that time, other people might have had the opportunity to step up and give some more. But I mean, I guess all we can do is, or all that I think we can do is just imagine that it'll stay just about the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in terms of just characteristics, we look at Distel as a potential game changer, especially if they want to keep that high press and try to win the ball back in midfield, especially. Just his ability to cover so much ground because he's quick, but he's got the long legs too to just be able to make up so much space. And obviously physically kind of dominates the ball as well. In terms of it's very tough for teams to get the ball off him without fouling him. So I think he kind of lends himself to this type of fixture. And I think Mark goes with Nick Ross just because I think he trusts Nick Ross a lot. Whether Nick plays, I would imagine in that free 8 role, there's a very big opportunity for Chapa to get more minutes as that for one of the first subs off to kind of re-energize the midfield. But I think he sticks with kind of the midfield that he started with, just because I think Mark really does trust that midfield 3 to provide what he's looking for in terms of dominating possession and all that. The next question, though, I mean, Christian, I think we know your answer on this, but Bassetti, there's obviously a hole in the lineup where Bassetti was in the first match. Josue Aron Gomez plugs right into that, in your opinion?
I think so. I can't imagine going either with, adding another midfielder, or putting someone else up there as an attacker. I just don't think that there's anyone else there for us. So, I think that the shape of the team will be just about the same as it was in March. Just a, quick plug and play for Gomez there.
You guys have any opinions on Aron getting the start potentially?
No, yeah, I'm interested to see if he and Gomez can partner up in the way that we imagine. I always think of kind of like the World Cup winning combo between Giroud and Griezmann. So if we can have something, even a USL version of that would be awesome. He was so important for us down the stretch last season, and it would be great if he can just, keep on keeping on, because we desperately need goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully he's able to produce at the rate he was last season. And, just him getting the start will just give him even more opportunity. So, yeah, hopefully he does start.
The final piece of this, score predictions. This might be even more of a crapshoot than when we did the Orange County, because we at least knew kind of the players that Orange County and kind of how Orange County played. So this, I understand this is a complete crapshoot, but given what little context we have, what do you guys think as far as score predictions for this one? And any significant goal scorers or first goal scorers, however you want to go about it. Who's the impact player, we'll say, in your mind? Christian, we can start with you.
Yeah, so I took it upon myself. I'm going to create a little competition between us. I am going to keep track of this year.
Yep.
And here's what I'm thinking. You tell me, we can discuss it in detail off the pod. But here's what I'm thinking is that, we'd get a point for getting the result right, win, draw, lose. 3 points total. So 2 points if you get the score correct as well as the result. Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking we give one name for who scores, at least one of the goals, and that'll give us an extra point. So that's what I was thinking. Like I said, we can discuss it in detail off the pod.
I like it.
But yes, so just I got our predictions from the first game. Phil, you predicted a 1-1 draw with Mahrez scoring. So we got the result. Yeah. So you're getting 1 point for that. Mikka picked a 2-2 draw. She thought Bassetti would score, so she gets a point. Austin picked a 1-3 Locomotive win. Gomez scoring. So no points there for Austin. And I picked a 1-1 draw with Gomez scoring, so I got a point for that. So that's where we stand right now.
All right. I like
nice.
it. I like it.
But for this week, I'm going to go ahead and say a 2-1 win for Locomotive. I think Lomis opens his account.
I like it.
So wait a minute, 2-1. So Lomis brace or
No, so I'm saying we just have to name one, regardless of what our
just
score.
at least one goal scorer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the person scoring is
Got
kind of
it.
like a bonus.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's what I'm thinking.
So I'm going to take Locomotive win 1-0. Dylan Mars with the goal.
Nice.
Oh man, I feel like I'm not gonna get any points because I'm predicting a 0-0 snoozer. I think that they're gonna look leggy. I don't know. Something's just telling me that I think it'll be a tactical battle maybe and a lot of stoppages probably. But I don't know. I don't have faith in anyone scoring like tons of goals. I'm going 0-0.
Let's put the stipulation in there that if you get the 0-0 right, then you probably get the extra point for the goal scorer too, because
that makes
you
sense,
essentially
then
guessed,
you're getting
you guessed that no one would score and you were correct.
Yeah.
So like,
okay.
I think that's fair. And then for me, I'm gonna go. Gosh, it's a tough. It's a very tough matchup to gauge because we've seen us play some really good stuff against MLS 2 sides, and we've seen us play some shocking stuff against MLS 2 sides. So yeah, gosh, I mean they got beat real bad, and I'm thinking. In my mind, they're going to come out of the gate a little bit worse than us. I'll go for a 2-0 Locomotive win. And I'm going to say, let's see. I'll go for Gomez with a goal.
Nice.
There you go.
So I think.
All right.
But I think it's an interesting conversation, Mikka, because it's just such a strange thing that we have no kind of precedent for. Like aside from a full preseason, which this essentially was, again with even less training. It does seem like. I mean, the common kind of knowledge would be that, like, we're not going to look that sharp coming out of the gate. But on the other hand, like, they did, have a full preseason, and now they've had kind of a second preseason. So is there any chance that maybe it does, they look all right? I don't know. Like, it seems very up in the air about, like, and maybe individual in terms of how well people conditioned over the quarantine and like over the kind of enforced lockdown. It seems almost like player to player how people will look.
Yeah, and again, I just want to say it's fucking hot. Like last night, I went out. I try to go outside every day so I don't like lose my mind. Last night I went out for a walk at like 9:30. Like it's already dark. It was still 100 degrees. So I mean,
that concrete's been baking all day.
Yeah. So when's kickoff? Is that 7?
7:30.
7:30.
Yeah, it's still hot.
The sun's still going to be out for like another hour.
Yeah. So I think that's going to play a part in how well these players look. Because it's ridiculous, and it's going to be like this for like a week. So yeah.
So in all of that, I want to give a shout out to those who asked questions, but we kind of like covered them without giving them credit. So I just want to shout those guys out. First, Jake Konecki, like always huge friend of the show, always involved on social media. Thank you for the question, as was Kevin, KCQ 94, who does such a great job. Actually, have to give a shout out to him because he was the one who kind of broke the Bassetti news. He had the eagle eye on the IG and noticed that there was some farewell stuff going on Bassetti's IG, and then was able to confirm it with some sources on the team. So well done from the journalistic aspect as well, Kevin, and appreciate the conversation as well. Yeah, I mean, this is a big matchup, I think, for Locomotive. We're obviously headed into this weird, unprecedented time of matches without fans in an abbreviated season. So much is possible in this time where it's not Locomotive's. Locomotive benefited, I think, so much from having a long season last year because there were stretches where they, were struggling and kind of had to work through some issues. So it'll be very interesting to see how things shake out. I'm glad we're starting off with a non-group game. So we're playing outside the group. It doesn't actually impact, as far as I know, it doesn't impact our maybe a tiebreaker within the group. I'd imagine, but I don't think it actually impacts our group play. I should have done more homework on this in terms of what does this game mean? But do you guys have anything in terms of the USL return to play rules and what these non-group games mean for Locomotive?
So tiebreakers go still total wins in regular season league games.
Okay.
And
that
goal
makes
differential
sense.
And yeah.
Okay. So it affects.
I literally looked this up, so I still didn't do my homework. I literally looked it up.
No, so okay, that's good to know though. So because I was figuring that it would be a tiebreaker because technically, I mean, it's almost like the reverse of Copa Tejas, where we did nothing in Copa Tejas and we went to the Western Conference Finals, and so there's a potential where a team could win every non-group game and finish dead last in the group, or vice versa, lose every non-group game and finish top. So it is a little bit of a weird situation where last season we were used to, single table, every game counts towards your record and where you finish in the Western Conference is what matters. But here it's finished in the top two of the group, advanced to the playoffs. So interesting format and something that'll definitely impact how things go, I think, the rest of the season. But yeah, just really excited to see a Locomotive game, despite the fact that no one will be there live and in person. And let us know. Obviously, we'll be watching the match, and we've got some stuff lined up for later in the season in terms of watch-alongs and all of that as we continue to social distance. But in the meantime, we hope you guys enjoyed the show. We will be back all season long with all the Locomotive content. I think now that games are being played, you can expect a lot more regular content from us. I know we've gotten a little bit we had gotten a little bit distanced from our release schedule, I guess, and now we're back on it, so you can expect regular releases throughout the season. They're on all the major podcast platforms and all the major social media platforms as well. So be sure to check us out there if you don't already. And until next time, hopefully discussing a Locomotive win next week, stay loco.